All right, here we are with lesson 5 for chapter 4. And we're going to get started here with the warm-up activity. Sarah plots points A and B to graph a linear relationship. Draw a right triangle to determine the slope. All right, so a right triangle here would be something that looks like this. Okay, and connect the dots. All right, now if we're trying to figure out what the slope of that line would be, we're trying to count the sides of the blocks here. We need to observe what we're counting by. It looks like everything's counted by ones. So I'm seeing down 2 and then right 3, all right, for that slope. So we come over here, we would say that it is -2 over 3 for our slope. Is the slope positive or negative? It's negative, it's going down. Okay, and we read lines the same way we read sentences, left to right. Use the slope to plot another point on the line. So we want to take what we have here and we want to repeat it. So down 2, right 3 again. We could keep doing that, right, until we run out of space. So that last one there will be floating because we ran out of space. Okay, but once you know the slope for the line, you know the slope for the rest of the line. All right, so how do we graph a line? Okay, go ahead and copy down these directions. The first thing we're going to do is identify slope and y-intercept from our equation. Remember, the slope is the m value. That's always with the x. Okay, and the y-intercept is the b value, which is always the constant. Okay, it's a vocab word. Okay, we're going to plot the y-intercept first. That's always where we start. We're going to determine the growth or the steepness of the line by using the slope. The way that we do that is by drawing a triangle, and we find the next point by counting rise over run. So let's see what that looks like in action. Okay, so the first thing is to always identify m and b. I'm going to request that you actually write them. So m equals 1/2, b equals 1. All right, this is where I start. All right, and then that's giving me directions for afterwards. I'm going to go up 1, and I'm going to go right 2. Okay, I like putting those directions down. I'll do that every time I do a problem for you. All right, so the 1 is where I start. That's the y-intercept. All right, big misconception here. Sometimes students put that on the x-axis. Remember, this is x, this is y. All right, and then from that point, I want to do the slope that I have there, which is up 1, right 2. So I'm going to go up 1, right 2, plot my next point. And I can keep doing that until I run out of space. Okay, I could go up 1 again, but I won't be able to go quite right 2 enough. Right, and once I have those points, okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. Use a ruler, please. That is a pet peeve of mine, that we use a ruler when we draw lines. Okay, so that would be the process of graphing a line. Okay, let's talk about each of these lines, okay? Because when you do graph the line, we want to be able to make some observations to know if we're right or wrong, okay? In this particular case, the type of slope is positive, okay? So our line should be going up from left to right, okay? In this particular case, the slope is negative. All right, that would indicate to us that our slope should be going down from left to right. All right, and then we have our special cases where we don't have an m and a b. Okay, so where it's just y equals a number, this is always going to be a horizontal line at whatever that number is. Okay, so the slope here would be 0. All right, and the direction is horizontal. And then when you have just x equals a number, again, vertical lines here, right? Special case. It is an undefined slope. Sometimes we get those mixed up between vertical and horizontal, but we'll catch on. And the direction is going to be vertical or up and down at whatever that x number is. So we just find 4 on the x-axis and we draw a vertical line. So we're going to see a couple of these examples here throughout the day today. Let's do a couple together to start. All right, it won't always give you this little piece down here, right? That's something that I would like you to write every time, okay? But when I look at my equation, I'm going to define m and b. Remember, the m is always the number with the x. The b is always the constant, also includes the sign. So in this particular case, my m is 1/3, my b is -2. Don't forget, this is where I start, and this tells me how to move. So I'm going to go up 1, and I'm going to go right 3. Okay, so I come on over here to my graph. I'm going to plot -2 first on the y-axis. That's right here. And then I'm going to carry out my slope. Up 1, and I'm going to go right 3. And I'm going to go up 1, And I can't quite go right 3 again, right? I'll be floating out here off the grid. Keep in mind, if I can't do the slope one direction, I could also do it the other direction. So I reversed both of my directions here. So instead of up 1, I can go down 1, right? Instead of right 3, I would go left 3. So that's also a possibility, okay? And then I want to put my ruler down and draw my line. Also, don't forget, I didn't mention this earlier, we want to make sure we put arrows on the ends of that line because the line goes on forever in both directions. Let's try another one. M equals -2, right? B equals +4. So this is where I start. Now, when there's no fraction written, don't forget, it's always over 1. So my directions here would be down 2 and right 1. So I'm going to come on over here. I'm going to start at 4 from my y-axis. Then I'm going to do my slope, which I said was down 2, right 1. So I'm going to go down 2, right 1, put my point. How many times should I do that? As many times as I can. Right, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. All right, until I run out of space. Put your ruler down and draw your line, connect the dots. Arrows at the ends. All these little details are going to count for us. Okay, let's go ahead and turn the page. All right, 2 more here, and then I'm going to have you work on a couple on your own. All right, so sometimes your grid won't be completely labeled, right? Doesn't matter. Okay, sometimes your grid might be counting by other numbers besides 1. All right, this one's still counting by 1s, even though it skips every other block. All right, the process is still the same. Notice that the M and the B aren't here for you to fill in the blank. I still want you to write them, right? I want you to write M equals 3. I want you to write B equals -4. And I want you to write what M means. This means up 3, right 1, even though that 1's not written. All right, remember that my B value is always where I start. So I'm going to start at -4. So -4 where? On the y-axis. So -4 is right here. And then I'm going to go up 3, right 1. Okay, how many times should I do that? As many times as I can. Up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1. All right, put my ruler down, draw my line. Okay. Next one here's a special case, right? Just a y equals. Okay, so I need to remember that that's a horizontal line. I don't have any fancy ways for you to remember that, right? It says y is horizontal, x is vertical. Okay, so y equals 3 for the whole equation and for the whole line. All right, so a horizontal line where y is 3. Y can't be any other number but 3. X can be any number. Y has to be 3. All right, so you have 4 more graphs there to go ahead and check out. So I'd like you to push pause, try those on your own, and then come on back and see how you did. All right, here we go. Let's take a look at number 5. Okay, so in this case, there was no b written, so it's just 0. So we'll start at the origin. And my m value is -1. So even though the -1's not written there, remember that the coefficient for x is always 1. All right, so a little curveball there with that one. So I put my b value at 0. I go down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1 as many times as I want. And then I draw my line. All right, what about number 7? Okay, so -3/2 is my slope. So that's down 3, right 2. Looks like my b value is at +1. All right, so I go down 3, right 2. I can do that twice. Don't forget, if I didn't have enough room, I could always reverse those and go up 3, left 2. Still works. All right, still puts me right back on my line. If you got that, great. If you didn't, copy that down. All right, next up, we have number 8. My m is 1/4, up 1, right 4. And then my b is +2. So I put a point at 2. I go up 1, right 4. I can do that twice. I can't go to the left this time. That's okay. As long as I have 2 points, I should be able to draw a line with a ruler. And finally, we have number 9 here. Okay, special case, x equals -2. That's a vertical line. X can only be -2. So we can't draw a diagonal line because that means x would be a bunch of different numbers. Okay, in this case, x is just -2. All right, last problem, right? Ms. Thompson asked her students to graph the equation 3/5 x minus 2. Here's their work. Which person is correct? If it were me and I was trying to answer a question like this on a test, I would find the m and the b for each of them, right? So remember that b value is an observation, right? So there's 2, -2, -2, -2. So no matter what, every person has the y-intercept correct. Okay, the slope they should have is 3 over 5, right? That's up 3, right 5. So I want to observe each of my slopes and see which one goes up 3, right 5. Okay, well, Frankie went down and right, so he's definitely not right. That's a negative slope. Okay, so I have Chandra and I have Dante. It looks like Chandra went up 3, right 5. It looks like Dante had him reversed. He went up 5, right 3. All right, so if I labeled each of those correctly, I should find out that Chandra was correct. All right, thanks for watching. Copying down your notes.